Very spooky. Hey, how's it going? I'm Derek Kirk of Effectatron, and I'm going to show you how I did that, as well as just some other tips and tricks to create your own particles that will send out and follow along any custom spline path that you create. So the things we're going to cover today are going to be the R21's Field Force, emitters, tracers, as well as some subfields inside of the Field Force, also the vector volume builder and the vector curl feature inside that. We're also going to cover the Redshift object tag. It's going to let you just really render out tracers and things like that really fast. Any kind of curve, it'll be able to render that out in render mode way faster and save you a lot of time and calculations inside your viewport, which will allow you to move around in your scene a lot faster. Also, I'm going to show you how to create this creepy organic blood texture inside of Redshift. So hopefully you enjoy, and I'd love to see what you create from it. Let's get into it. This way. We're going to start with a spline. We're going to do a circle at first. You can use whatever spline you want. And then we're going to go to simulate. We're going to go to particles and emitter. And we're going to, what I like to do is I like to go to the animation tag, right click on the emitter. I like to go to align to spline. And then I drag the circle down here into the spline path. And what that does is it just makes sure it centers this emitter on this spline for me. And then I'll go up here and I'll delete that tag, and that way I can just rotate this by hitting R and holding shift. Okay, so now that just put it right in the center for me, so I didn't have to drag it around and try to get it just right. This way I know it's exactly in the middle, which just helps make a more even look around your spline. So if you want to make a field force, don't go looking for it under fields, because it's not there. It's under forces. It is under forces here under the simulate tab, and that's where you can find the field force. Now this is cool. This is only in R21, and it's awesome. And you've got this little display box here, and you're going to want to grab that and drag it out. And make sure it's bigger than your spline. Make sure your spline is contained within this box, okay? Okay, now we've got a field force. The first thing we're going to want to do is either go down here, hold this down, the middle button here where the volume tag is, and choose a spline object, and then select our circle. Or if you're lazy like me, you just want to grab this circle and drag it down into there. And that's going to go ahead and create the spline object for you right off the bat. Okay, so the next thing we're going to want to do is change this velocity type to change direction. So the next thing we're going to want to do is create a tracer object. So you're going to want to click and hold this cloner object up here and go down to tracer. And that is going to put the field force in there. We don't want that. We're going to click that and delete that. And we're going to grab this emitter and plop it in there. Okay, so now when we hit play, look at that. We've already got this cool. Okay, so obviously we need some more time. Let's go about 500 frames. We're going to hit Control D to bring up the project settings. I just like to work in 24 frames. That's going to go ahead and convert it the same amount of time. Same amount of length, just reduce the number of frames. So now if we hit play, you'll see that this shoots off, pew, comes up, and goes right back around into that. And so one key thing to do here is we're going to want to go into this circle. We're going to go into the remapping, and we're going to take the minimum effect, and we're going to bring that all the way up. And what that's going to do is that's going to make sure everything is completely affected by this spline. Nothing is getting left off. Nothing's like getting excluded from the pull of the vector of the spline. So now if I say random, and I'm going to say, so I added a random tag, and I'm going to set it to add. And if I hit play on this, you can see we have this little squiggly, blah, 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 which almost looks like veins already. You can see some of it's freaking it out a little too much, so it's going all over the place. One thing we can do for the random field is increase the scale of the field, just so it doesn't quite freak it out so much. So let's go about 250. If we hit play, we're going to get this nice kind of wobbly. We might need to do a little less. Let's do about 125. Yeah, so I want it to have this kind of waviness to it. Yeah. Okay, very cool. But we're spreading out a little far away from the spline more than I would like to. So what we can do to kind of pull stuff back in is we're going to click this circle, hold control and drag it up to the top, make a copy of it, go down to the layer settings of this one and change the distance mode to radius. Okay, and that's in the layer panel. And now we're going to set this to add, because if we left it on normal, it would just overwrite everything else. And so now what should happen, and this might be crazy, yeah, everything's just going to get sucked into the middle, and you're going to have this like weird woven, it's pretty wild. It's pretty cool little like twisty, if you wanted something to wrap around stuff, this is kind of a cool effect. Also, if you look at it kind of backwards, it almost looks like Spider-Man. It's like you could do a web with this, pretty cool. But that was way too strong, obviously. So the way to fix that is go into the opacity here and just bring that down. So let's say about 5%. Now you can see, yeah. So stuff's like getting close to it, but and not really pulling away from it too far, and it's still close to the edge up here, as you know, even almost closer than it was in here. We don't have the stuff spreading around and getting farther and farther away from it like we were before. So that is pretty cool. So now, one benefit of that, let's say we make this an editable spline. So issues you can run into, I always like to show issues, because that was a perfect scenario. Circle is a perfect shape. It's very easy. It's going to work well. But let's say I pull this in like that. Okay, so now you've got this spline that makes a sharp turn back. Let's go back into our field force here. And let's uncheck this one just to see what happens here. So when I hit play on this, they're going to come down like normal. They're going to kind of pull up here, pull up there. But some of these are just going to go whoa, wherever the heck they want to. And they're not going to really... Look how far away from the spline this is. That's not... You can't really tell what shape that is as much. But if I turn this back on and pull everything back towards that spline a little bit, let's see, it should help it make this turn a little better. Well, yeah, see, that's so a lot more of those particles are coming back and just following the spline a lot better. There's still some cool, you know, organic far away ones, but this is definitely a much clearer following of the path. And you can obviously adjust that. You can really make them just hug that spline if you want to do something tight that just has kind of a loose, veiny, you know, entrance or whatever. I don't know. that didn't sound right. But let's just say 11%. So now we've got this kind of cool shape that's going to just have kind of a tighter, like it's almost like it's growing together to form this super vein or vine, you know, so you can really play with that and really get some different results, bring it back down, and you get a different look just by altering a few settings. So this would work as, look how cool that is. So now you can do, you know, whatever shape you want, right? Let's delete our circle. Let's do like a helix. Let's say you want to do some cool, creepy thing over around a product. Let's go ahead and set the plane to ZY, bring it down. Let's make it a little taller. And let's make it spiral a few more times, because that's always fun, right? Okay, so now we'll hit T. Let's shrink that down just so it fits inside our box for demonstration purposes here. Make sure it's all inside. So look, you can tell it's going outside our field force. So we're going to need to grab this and make it bigger. There we go. So now it all fits inside that. So all we have to do is go to our field force, and then all we have to do is go to our field force, and then in the spline object, I think we can just click and replace. Yeah, okay. So now you can see our spline objects are orange now because our spline object we did have is not there anymore. So what we can do is grab our helix and actually hold it over it till you get the pointer finger hand and just instantly replace that when you let go. And so that's really cool. So now you don't have to reset up each one, add it, redo your settings again. It's automatically going to replace it and apply the settings that were on the previous spline straight to that one. And you can do that with any spline shape or custom spline, whatever you end up doing. You can do a text. So now when we hit play, you're going to see, wait a minute, that's not quite right. It's because we moved our spline, we need to also move our emitter. And I like to put it maybe at the top here. But we can do our trick again and go right click, animation, align to spline. Grab our spline. Sorry, this is on the wrong thing. emitter, right click, animation, align to spline, grab our spline, plop it on there, and that's going to put it right at the start. So now we can grab this, delete that, grab this tag, delete that, shift, rotate, and I always like to slide it on there just a little bit. It's okay. We're gonna, so now we've got, I wanted to start from the bottom, right? So I'm hitting it and it's just shooting out. And I'm like, well, that's not really what I want. So instead of making it come down, I could flip the helix and do all this stuff. But what I'm gonna do, so the problem is our spline needs to be flipped. So what we can do is go to spline. We're gonna just flick this little button right here, reverse. Flip it up and reverse it. Yeah. Reverse. And we hit play. And now, as you can see, it's going to shoot up and go the right direction. So that's perfect. That's exactly what we want. We wanted it to grow from the bottom. And we want it to go up and up and up. So now we're making this cool, viney hurricane. And let's say, okay, I want it to go faster. Well, you're going to change that in the particle emitter. So let's say we want this to go 300. Go back. Pew! Pretty cool. So already you have these like just bizarre, wild shapes that you couldn't model easily at all, and they're really cool. So let me show you one other thing, and I'll tell you how to model it back. So one thing you can do, instead of changing the particle size, speed and stuff, instead of using change direction, you can use set absolute velocity. And what that's going to do is that's basically going to override your particle emission speed. And it's just going to create its own speed. And right now at 5, you can tell, oof, boy, that is way too slow. But let's say 500, and that's crazy fast. Let's go somewhere in the middle. I always like to go to extremes. So one thing, clearly this is kind of hard to see. So let's turn that off in the viewport. And there we go. So now we've got our speeds. And these are being controlled by a set absolute value. So instead of controlling your emitter, you can use it this way. Just an alternate way to do it. There are benefits to one or the other, and really it depends on your scene. Okay, so now here's the cool part. Okay, finally we're gonna get to the part where we make it look cool. So we've got this particle, right? Okay, we've got this weird spiral, and this could be text or whatever. Here's the best thing about Redshift ever. Okay, we're gonna right click this tracer. We're gonna go to Redshift Tag. We're gonna go to Redshift Object, and right here we already have this curve option because it knows that it's a tracer. So we're gonna go to mode. I like to use capsules. We're gonna up thickness, maybe 6. We're gonna grab, well, we'll just see what that does first. So let's create a material real quick. Redshift, material, boom. We'll slap that on there for right now. We'll go to Redshift, lights, area light. We'll bring that up above. We'll rotate it. That was clunky. We're gonna make sure we grab this axis and rotate it. We're gonna make it bigger, so it's a big, huge softbox, like we're in some kind of cool studio that has that kind of stuff. And now we're gonna go to Redshift, render view. Look at that, wowie. Let's turn down that light. Let's do about 5 instead of 100. Now we're talking. So we've got this really cool growing cylinder thing, and we can tell it's kind of lightning bolty. I don't really like the way that looks. Okay, so we've kind of got a lightning bolty look to this, and part of that is going to be the scale of our random field here, and I'm actually going to increase that just a little bit more to about 250. No, sorry, 175. And then I'm also going to go under my tracer, and here under type, I'm going to choose linear. That's fine. But under interpret points, I'm going to go with subdivide. And then we can up the sample steps to 2. And then we're going to go under, okay, we're going to now go under our Redshift tag, and we're going to go down here to Mesh Subdivide, and we're going to set that to Adaptive. We're going to leave it at 3. And so now, if I hit play, it looks a little choppy still. So what I'm going to do is, instead of, on the tracer, instead of saying linear, I'm going to say Bezier. And now that's just going to give us some smoother points. See, they're just a little less lightning bolty, a little less sharp. So now if I go to Redshift Render View, hit Render. There we go. So now we've got this cool mess going on here. But so the weird thing is, it's the exact same shape from the start as it is from the beginning, and honestly I don't like that. We want it to have this like thin pointy growing effect. So what we're going to do for that is very easy. Underneath the curve object here, you've got this scale, you've got this line. We're going to grab this point, we're going to bring it down, and we're going to grab this and pull it back. And now you can see instantly we have this thin wiry thing at the top, and then it gets thicker and thicker as it goes down. So it starts off real thin and gets fatter, and this is going to be completely controlled by this. So if you want it to be kind of a sharp, that's kind of a nice distance there. So it starts off thin and it gets thicker to its full length by the end real quick. So that is one way to do a really cool, really fast look. And I'll show you how to make it look like veins, just because it's fun. If you don't have Redshift, that's okay. Let's pretend you don't. I flipped myself around here. Let's say you don't have this Redshift tag, okay? You don't have Redshift material. That's fine. We can bring that back. That's fine. Because the main thing... Okay, so we don't have a Redshift tag on there, but we want to create this, and we're not going to use Redshift. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Splines. We're going to make a circle. We're going to make this real small, like maybe even less than that, like 3. Okay, and then we're going to go to Sweep. We're going to drag the circle into the sweep. We're going to drag the tracer into the sweep. And now when we hit play, it's going to be funky, right? Because we need to do it the opposite. We need to go circle above the tracer. That's going to be key. So now we hit play. Look, hey, we got geometry, real geometry that's not showing up in render only. It's showing up right now. If we go to display, it's got very, very dense geometry. And that's going to come down to our... We can back off the sample steps there. The subdivided is probably the way to go here. So it's just going to be a little slower in your viewport because it's not rendering it in post like Redshift does. But check this out. We don't have this cool growing effect yet, but it's very easy. You go to sweep. Underneath the sweep, you've got your scale here. We're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to grab the end. We're going to pull it down, pull it back a little bit. We're going to take this one. We're going to pull this. We're going to pull this forward. And there we go. Now we've got the thin growth at the top, and it's going to become this thicker vein down at the bottom. And in order to control the size, say these are too small, you simply increase the size of your circle. Yep. So now you have geometry growing right there. It's not going to render like one as far as it's just gonna slow down your viewport. Really, is all it is, because you're adding a lot of geometry to the viewport, and Redshift bypasses that and does it in the render. So, you know, obviously it's taking a lot longer to get up to the top because it's doing a whole lot of things. We can probably take off this subdivided thing. Let's see if that helps at all. Yeah, it's a little more lightning bolty. But then we can add a subdivide on afterwards, but we're just talking again about a lot more geometry. So you can see the benefits of Redshift already, which is the speed at which that was rendering out. But yeah, if you go to render this, it's still gonna be there, except now you don't have your actually. We're just going to actually put this on the sweep. Yeah, and that's going to render that out. And then you can take your sweep, you can hold Alt and click subdivide it, and that'll go ahead and smooth that out. Oof, you can see it's just so much slower. Hey, there it is. And we've lost some of the details, but that's a pretty good result still. It just is a lot slower process to not use Redshift. So I really like just how Redshift makes that very fast to do. Undo. Okay, so now let's show you how to make this cool veiny texture real quick for Redshift users, because I showed off this vein thing in my Instagram, and I really wanted to show how I made that. So what I did is I created the material and I then saved it. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna show you exactly what that looks like. Okay, so we'll grab that, we'll throw that on this tracer, we'll hit render view, we'll hit render here, and there we go. We're looking at this, and it's a little too bright because of this light here. I'll take that down to like a 2. Yeah, that looks cooler. Okay, so we've got this bloody vein. So if we go in and look at it here, this close angle here, I do that so often, it's insane how often I do that. Render view. Yeah, so you can tell we've kind of got this organic looking, some of it's rough, some of it's clean, it's kind of shiny, but it's got also some red, it's got some dark. It's very looking. So all I did for that, if we look at this, it's very simple. There's no texture maps, no nothing. It's just noise textures, okay? Look at all this spaghetti. There we go. Let's get this a little cleaned up. So all I did, I have a Redshift material. I just made a default, a regular one. Then I added a Redshift noise. And under this noise, I actually left it completely default. And I just threw that into the reflection roughness. So without that, it's just a little too shiny. Let's plug that back in. Whoop. For the bump, in order to do that, I made a noise. I upped the complexity to 8. I added some distortion and some distortion scale. And I also changed the overall scale to 0.2. And then I plugged that into a bump map here under the utilities. And that's default settings. Plug that into the bump here. And then for the diffuse color, I did a noise again, changed the overall scale to 0.5, messed around with the fractal noise, and also made the colors a dark red and a red, and then inverted them. And then I also brought up the darker, so it was just a little brighter because there's a little too much darkness. So there you go. That's how you create a bloody vein texture that can grow and spell out anything that you draw, whatever. Pew. Yeah, let's do the opposite of that. You can make a creepy Christmas tree. But if you had a texture that was made up of Christmas lights, you know, this might be cool looking. There you go. Merry Krampsmas. Merry Krampus. Okay. So there you go. Now you've got this cool growing texture. You can also just make it black if you want. I think that would look kind of a Venom kind of vibe. Let's do black. Yeah. Venom. Yeah. There you go. So now you've got this cool, dark, growing infection thing going on. Very cool. Awesome. So I hope that was helpful. That is a way to make procedural growth around any spline object, make it have this cool organic growth. Very neat. One last thing I want to show you real quick is something that has to do with the vector curls within the volume builder here. Now what I've done here is I've set up the same thing we've got with the emitter, we've got the field force, we've got the volume builder inside of the field force, and then inside the volume builder we have a random field, and we've got our sweep and our tracer, which is linked to our emitter. So the same thing we've been doing, except now inside the volume builder we also have these vector curls. So when I hit play, you're going to see it's creepy, right? So basically the random field, you know, is doing some things, but the vector curl is just creating this crazy, sorry, back it up. Oh. Okay, so if I turn these vector curls off, we hit play, it's just kind of shooting out there. Turn these vector curls on. You can tell, see these lines, they're kind of showing off what the flow of this vector is, and they're getting kind of wild. So now when we have the vector curls on, and there's no settings to these vector curls, you literally just add them on, and that's it. And then now you have this crazy cool. So if you're not trying to like draw any specific pattern, you just want like chaos, you can make like really cool bushes with this. You could do something with whatever you wanted out of this, and then instantly you have this really cool, crazy, wild, every time. You have this really cool, interesting, whoa, look at that, and that's fun. Yep, there you go. You've got a crazy, wild, blood, Timmy Corrigan, Stranger Things, creepy, whatever thing coming out. And, you know, it's wild. And I didn't have to model any of that, you know, it just popped out. So that's really cool. So that's what I'm going to show you. The field force and the volume builder combined with emitters and tracers can make some amazing, cool things really quick. Thanks for sticking with me through this whole tutorial. Hopefully you learned something. With one of those ways is hopefully going to help you create something. If you do create something, please show me on Instagram at Effectatron, on my Facebook, Effectatron. I also Twitch stream. Sometimes I do. So be sure to check that out. Check me out on Twitch as well. All the links are below in my description. But basically, just let me know if this helps you, and then let me know, you know, if you guys make something, please let me see that. I'd love to share that and create a community where we're just kind of hanging out and solving problems and teaching cool things. So hopefully this was helpful. And when I saw that in the R21 demo, I just knew I had to make it. So thanks for hanging in there. And it means a whole lot if you guys could just subscribe and ring the notifications so you know when I do my next tutorial. I also might start live streaming on YouTube as well. I'm not sure yet. Let me know in the description below, or the comments below, if that's something you guys would be interested in, or if I should stick to just doing it on Twitch or just doing cut down tutorials. I would love to do some, you know, Q&A kind of stuff on the live stream, or figure out some problems together, kind of like Rocket Lasso does and stuff like that, and ask Grayscale Gorilla. But thanks for watching. See you next time. Later.